Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. Or you can subscribe to the channel, click that notifications button and get your notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Listen, before we get started into the technical elements of this fight, let me just say this. For me, in terms of sheer drama, that was a fight for the ages. That was one of the great heavyweight fights. And, you know, when it comes to Deontay Wilder, people really need to put some respect on that name now. You know, a lot of people have spoken. I've heard so many things. Deontay Wilder's too wild and sloppy. He wouldn't be competitive with any of the great heavyweights of the past. And I've always explained that's rubbish. Okay, this idea that this heavyweight era is weak is just ludicrous. This is a very strong, very stacked heavyweight division. And Deontay Wilder, what I saw today from him, I'm going to start off with Wilder before we get into the technical elements of Fury. For me, it was romantic, and I don't mean romantic in a lovey-dovey way, but in a almost like a mythological story kind of way. There was a beauty to what we saw, because what we saw from Deontay Wilder was this poetic expression of the human spirit. This was a man who could easily have jacked it in. I privately, well, not just privately, publicly, I made this clear on a couple of other videos, was saying how when it came to Deontay Wilder's psychology, Malik Scott would not be able to throw in the towel. We knew that because of what happened with Breland. And when he realizes, if he genuinely believes that they were tampering with the gloves, when he realizes that Tyson Fury is the real deal, and this was not just a case of glove tampering, he will realize that everything he believed in was false. And that's when that self-belief could come crumbling down. Now, in that sort of scenario, you can quit, not necessarily on your stool, but mentally jack it in. Let's say you go down, you might choose not to get back up. We saw none of that. We saw a man who was a warrior, okay? The Spartans in ancient Greece used to have a phrase, a motto: return with your shield or on it. With your shield meant you came back in battle victorious, post-battle victorious. On your shield, when Spartan soldiers would be killed, their shields would be placed on horses and their bodies would be placed on the shield. So it was almost like a coffin making a procession back home. If you had an arrow in your back, it meant that you probably ran away, in which case you were not given a burial. So the only way you could return on your shield was if you died in battle. And although Tyson Fury was the man that came down with a Spartan entourage today, Deontay Wilder also showed that level of spirit. There was a Spartan spirit to this man. And you have to give him an incredible amount of credit. This guy is a warrior. He has an iron chin. He has an unshakable will. And you just have to give this man an incredible amount of plaudits for what he has achieved by rising up like a phoenix from the ashes, because many people did not give this guy a hope in hell, to be perfectly frank. They thought he was going to get completely creamed, blown out. Fury's got his number. And instead what we saw was one of the most dramatic fights in heavyweight history. So props to Deontay Wilder. He came out working very, very hard early on. Too hard in my opinion. He was throwing far too many hard shots to the body. I don't think that's what he should have been doing. I understood that he was trying to invest in the body to then later on come upstairs to keep Fury at bay, to try and make him think twice about coming in. And that certainly worked. Because one of the things I'll say about Tyson Fury is that from a tactical perspective, I actually thought Fury was very poor. I thought he was poor tonight. Now, bear in mind that I'm going to remind my subscribers of this, because whenever you question any particular fighter who's popular, you'll always get fans of that fighter start to insult you and stuff like that. Bear in mind, you're listening to a guy who from back in 2012 was telling you that Tyson Fury is the heavyweight with all the tools to become the king of the heavyweight division. He will be the man to overthrow Vladimir Klitschko. This is when he was uppercutting himself in the face and people were laughing at him. And I was talking about a rough diamond, a guy who's got the tools, right? So don't come to me and say you're undermining Fury on one of his greatest nights. No, we're talking about a tactical perspective. And the way he approached this fight, in my humble opinion, was all wrong. First and foremost, he came in too heavy. I genuinely believe that for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, he was gassing. There were periods in that fight where, despite what the commentary team was saying, and generally I thought Richie Woodall did a really good job tonight on all the undercard fights too, which I'll discuss in another video. But when they were talking about how he's in control, he's looking fresh, he was not looking fresh. There were moments where he was not throwing, where he was in range and Wilder was clearly hurt or tired, and Fury was not throwing. And Fury would choose to engage on the inside to wear him down. Part of that is tactical, but part of that was also to preserve his own lungs. There were moments where he had the opportunity to work when there were openings, and he would choose to land a single or double shot where Wilder's construct was broken, his balance was all over the place, and he could have thrown 3s and 4s potentially to get Wilder out of there, and he would instead opt to tie up and lean on him. Now I understand that's chipping away at the energy reserves, right? So let's be patient. Why rush things? But we're talking about late in the fight, rounds 10, rounds 9, 10, 11. There were moments where he was doing stuff like that. So this wasn't a vintage Tyson Fury performance, and Fury himself said post-fight it wasn't his best performance. Now, one of the reasons he also suffered, I believe, from the perspective of weight and stamina is because in the technical preview video where I was showing you guys a whole bunch of footage talking about how the feinting and the threat of the entry was a massive problem to Wilder, as was the fact that often Fury would feint when he was just outside range and he would threaten to come in, and you didn't know whether he was coming in a manner where he could reach Wilder and Wilder couldn't quite reach him, or whether he wasn't actually going to come in at all, whether it was just a feint. And so when Wilder would try to step forward with that right hand, I explained to you how Fury would have that high arm, sort of like arm bar, arm lock, and step back. And any right hand that was coming, because it would come from Wilder's chest area and it would try to almost be flung round, it would act as a bar. So as he steps back, it would catch the arm and it cut off the trajectory of that shot. So you're fighting in a manner where you're leaning back. Klitschko used to do this a lot too. Leaning back, arms raised, and you're maximizing the distance between yourself and your opponent. Well, he didn't do that today, Tyson Fury. Instead, because of that extra weight, probably, it may have just been a tactical choice, which was terrible, but I believe it was because of the added weight and the stamina issues. He wasn't fainting as much, a lot less he was fainting today. And he wasn't stepping back as much when Wilder would seek to step in. And not only that, he wasn't using the high arms too often to block that shot as he steps back away. Instead, he'd have quite a high guard and walk into range. Now, we spoke again in the technical preview video how Tyson Fury had an issue, brilliant on the outside, brilliant all the way in, but he has a bit of an issue when he's trying to transition from out to in. He leaves himself susceptible to shots. And I spoke specifically about hooks, particularly the left hook. Well, today Wilder didn't really bring left hooks into play. But what he was, not as much as he should have, but what he was susceptible to still was the straight right hand. Because he was walking in, often in line with the right hand, just stepping in without even jabbing behind it. Now, when you're going to jab, in the same way that that long stiff arm can work in your favor as you step back out, when you're throwing the jab, you can then come in through that and you're still protecting your chin, your head, you can come in low as you do it. And by doing that, you're stepping in a safe manner and you're jabbing Wilder and forcing him back. He was bypassing that at times and he was just walking him down. And he ends up getting caught with numerous right hands. He ends up going down. Numerous right hands, not consecutively, but I mean over the course of the fight, there were some scary moments in there for Tyson Fury. So we have to call this out because, listen, Javon Sugar Hill gave great advice because everything I'm saying now was screaming mid-fight. And after I'd said it, I think it was in round 7 that I said this, at the end of round 7, so literally 2 minutes after I've said it, Javon Sugar Hill starts going mad at Tyson Fury in the corner, shades of his uncle, right, going mad at him, telling him to jab his way in. What are you doing? Why have you bypassed the jab? And Fury had to thank him at the end of the fight publicly to say, if it wasn't for my trainer, I wouldn't have got through this fight because he told me to get behind the jab. But I'm not being funny. Great advice, right? But I'm not being funny. Weren't they prepared for this pre-fight? Surely you've got to know that you can't just walk into range with a high guard against Deontay Wilder. Haven't you seen the Bermane-Stiverne fight? Haven't you seen the Dominic Breazeale fight? So it was not a vintage performance from Fury, but what you also saw is an incredible desire and heart, once again, an incredible inside game. Not only was this man able to maul and lean on Wilder, he was finding space for the uppercut consistently, beautiful. Hooks to the body. I would have liked to have seen him at points, like I said, put 3s and 4s together. There were moments where I felt like the left hook, right hook, and then right to the body and then rising upstairs was open for him, which could have caused considerable damage when there were moments where Wilder was leaning all the way back on the ropes and was not in a position at all to come back with a counter of any sort. Well, I wanted to have seen Fury come in low at that point, land shots to the body and rise up. So there were areas on the inside where I would have liked to have seen something a little bit extra. But generally speaking, the man's a beast on the inside. The jab, when he was using it with the 1-2, the jab right hand, was beautiful. And in the past, Tyson Fury has had a bit of an underdeveloped right hand. In the second fight, you saw how it was a looping, almost caveman-like shot. Well, today you saw it at points being very straight and landing on the target. And it was heavy. Like, you could see even early in the fight, it was heavy, man. It was really snapping Wilder's head back. And this is the thing, right? Fury, if he gets the balance right, he really is an exceptional heavyweight by any standard in any era. Something I've said consistently from, for a long time now. He's a great fighter. And I think we are in a great heavyweight division that's stacked. And tonight he had to really, really dig deep against a warrior. For me, it was a fight for the ages. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. How did you see the fight? Are you excited by what you saw? Do you think I'm being too harsh on Fury with regards to tactics? He himself, remember, is not 100% happy with the performance. What do you think about Deontay Wilder? What else would you have liked to have seen him do? I felt that Malik Scott did a very good job in improving his back foot game, in the sense that when he was under attack, under pressure, before really getting tired, he was still maintaining his construct in a much better way. His feet were below him. And then when the contact would be made, as we predicted in the preview video, as the fight wore on, you could see his construct was still getting broken because Fury is such a bigger and heavier man. But early in the fight, he was holding Fury off a little bit with that. So putting on the extra muscle around the chest and the shoulders, I don't necessarily think was a bad idea. And we did see some improvement with him on the back foot. But generally speaking, it was a slight improvement on what has always been Deontay Wilder. What we saw, though, in my humble opinion, the reason it was so competitive is because Fury wasn't the Fury of the second fight. Okay, I don't think he was as good in this fight. Not just in terms of output, i.e. the performance itself of what you saw in the ring, but tactically. Anyway, let me know what you think, guys. A fight for the ages, two warriors. I hope they get the credit they deserve. I may very well do a final installment of the mythological series where I compare mythology to boxing of the modern day, because what we saw today were two incredible warriors, and they deserve to be seen through that lens as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.